There's a lot of snails up here. Like, around the library, they love to hang around the poles. I don't know why, but they're just snails. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, I went to that theater conference I talked about in that other video, and I auditioned, and I got an interview, or a callback interview for Merry-Go-Round Youth Theater. About a month later, I'm sitting in Italian, and I get a phone call. It was like Auburn, New York, and I was like, and I jumped up, and I like left the classroom, and I was like, hello. It's funny enough, we actually moved here on my 22nd birthday, so I've been feeling 22 this entire experience. This was the first time I actually didn't know anybody, because I went to school outside of Philly, I went to school in Philly, and then I moved up here, and I had no connection to anyone, which was scary. I'd never really been around completely new group of people, except in like 2003 when I started Summer City. That doesn't count. And it turns out that they are some of the most amazing people I've ever met. We're from all over. It's funny, whenever we go out, our IDs are from different states, and people are like, for some reason, when it is like kind of warm out to like sort of hot, people in Auburn like to walk around without shirts on. Like, it gets kind of hot in Philadelphia, but it was never nearly as hot up here. But people were walking around like it was like 110 degrees without their shirts on. And that's just like this thing up here, just people not wearing shirts, which, I don't know, like, live your life, I guess. Whenever we take the van out, we usually drive by Little Caesars Pizza. There's always this guy outside who is advertising, and he has this Little Caesars poster. And there's this one guy who is like really intense. He like, you see him getting ready, he has his headphones, he puts them in his ear, and then he like starts to rock out. And he starts like flipping his sign, it's like up in the air, and it's insane. He's like, amazing. I had some experience working with kids, but not as much as everyone else who had worked here. So we're going over our materials that we have to present in the class, and I'm like, oh god, I cannot lead a classroom discussion. But it was one of those situations where you get up there and you have to do it, so you do it, and then you're fine. For some reason, all of them have street signs in their hallways. So you have Trustworthiness Way, Self-Control Street, Caring Way. When we start to bring in our giant flats and poles and things, there's always that one kid, every school, who will turn and go, what the? And it always stops at the. They will never say, what the heck? What the frick? It's always, what the? Why? Why do you do that? I don't know. In our one show, I talk about whales, and I say, oh, blue whales are the biggest whales in the world. And all the kids raise their hand, and they'll be like, they're the size of 3 school buses. And I'm like, okay. And then in other schools, I'll have kids raise their hand and be like, I heard whales can jump over 3 school buses stacked on top of each other. And they always just measure these, and I don't think any of these things are correct, but it's always about the school buses. We talk about kangaroos, and they say that they can jump 90 feet in the air over a school bus. They say that they can jump the length of a school bus. I guess it's because it's the largest moving thing that they know, but everything is measured in school buses. In one class, I was saying cavemen, and someone said, why do you say cavemen? And I didn't know. I guess because we are the race of man, but we could just say cave people. I don't know. So I started saying cave people. And when I did that, there's always that kid under the breath that mutters, cavemen. And I'm like, cave people. Whenever I bring up cave people, there's always kids that are like, oh, like the Croods, or we start talking about them, and then I slowly get a summary of the Croods. I had this kid that raised their hand during this cave people discussion. My parents said that there are only two cave people, Adam and Eve, and they lived in the Garden of Eden. And I didn't know what to do, and I was like, yes. So someone in this one class brought up cave paintings, and I was like, and who put those there? The president. I'm doing this workshop about the Amazon rainforest, and we were talking about this dam that is being built, and it's a kind of serious discussion with these 5th graders. And this girl raises her hand, and she's like, Daddy said Tigger was getting old, so we have to put him down. And I was just like, oh. It was very sad, but it was very irrelevant. I am in my Indiana Jones hat. We have these big books behind me. We set the show, it's like in a library, and I'm actually going to give you a tour of the set right now. I walked into this one class, first thing they do is hand me a copy of their own Just So stories, which I thought was like the cutest thing. They had talked about the show before I got there, and they all wrote their own Pourquoi stories, which I'm keeping this forever. I had one girl come up to me in the hallway who was in kindergarten, which I don't do the kindergarten show, but she came up to me as we're finishing Lowdown, and she said, I have something for you. And I was like, okay. And so she reaches into her backpack and she pulls out this letter, and I have no idea what it says. But it was so nice. I love this. I always turn the letters over to make sure I know what they draw so I can talk about it in my return letter. And this kid just draws this. And I love when kids draw me as the whale, because they always include the feet that are sticking out of the bottom. I never thought Steve was a particularly cool name. I don't know, I have weird opinions about my name. But I say Steve and they all go, Steve! And then kids will raise their hand and they'll be like, you look like Steve from Minecraft. I don't know what Minecraft is. I'm thinking Minesweet, and I'm like, there are no people in Minesweet. There's a Minecraft cow. Dear Merry-Go-Round Theater, I've got a question. How did the people in Brazil get the hydroelectric dam not to erode away? Follow-up question. How are they going to get the Tukuna people to move off their land? I've got another question. What about the animals? I've got a lot more questions. Do you want me to go to a website and ask them? You know what? I'm just going to ask them. Can't they just make the tunnel bigger so it doesn't flood? How big is the dam? How big is the tunnel? How big are the propellers? What do they use to generate electricity? Does it work with a turbine? I think I've come to the end of my questions. Just one more question. Do you just make up the words as you go along, or do you read the cards that are in the back, or do you just memorize a script? Happy Halloween, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, and Happy Birthday to all of you. Nowhere in the show does this happen, but I love it. I just read a lot. Like, I would have a book with me every day in the van, and I love to read. What is Wegmans? Mesa Grande. I was not a big froyo eater until I came up here. I finally received my dad's biscotti recipe. Everyone bakes. We would have these potluck dinners for every holiday. Our boss loves ghost hunting, so she always hosts the Halloween party, and it's super decked out. We did ghost hunting. It was I never knew how to order meat before, and I learned that I like my burgers well done. I learned that I like to drink vodka cranberry, grape vodka with lemonade. I like Royal Flush shots. I discovered the joy of not wearing pants. I had the opportunity to take voice and dance, which I thought I wasn't really going to be singing or dancing for a while, and I just had come to terms with that. But they were able to set me up with a voice teacher who lived relatively close. I don't have a car up here, and for a while I could ride my bike. I bought a bike while I was up here. But eventually it got way too snowy for me to ride my bike, and so I would walk. And I finally was like, you know what, there has to be a shorter way so I don't have to walk 45 minutes. And so I looked on Google Earth, and it showed that right by the canal there was like a passageway to go across just where they hadn't dug out yet. And I was like, oh, great, I'll do this. It's going to save me like 20 minutes. So I get there, and I guess Google Earth hasn't been updated in a while because there was water everywhere. The canal had been finished, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, my voice lesson starts in 5 minutes, and I am on the wrong side of the water. And so I'm like freaking out and pacing up and down. I'm on my phone, like trying to see if there's another way. And then I come across this like construction bridge, and I was like, YOLO! And so I'm walking across, and I'm like, if I slip and die, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm going down and working at the State Theater of Virginia this summer. I'm doing a children's tour in the fall, and then I'm doing another tour in the winter. And then I don't know what I'm doing next, but I think what I learned from this job is that I can do this. I came in here totally freaked out. I was like, I can't talk to new people. I don't know how to deal with kids, but I learned that I can do this. I can make a living doing this. I can save money, and I can have conversations with people. This job is exactly what I needed. And I will see you next time.